welcome to a special edition of Straight Talk, sponsored by Darley and Inglis, as per usual. This edition features an interview with Magic Millions Supremo Gerry Harvey. Tim Rowe, our senior journalist, joins us. Tim, you caught up with Gerry last week at Magic Millions to chat about a whole host of things. Before we get into the interview, what stood out to you about sort of having a chat with one of the, I guess, the icons of the Australian bloodstock industry and probably of Australian Australian business?
Oh, first of all, probably the thing that's not in the interview was walking into the reception, Bren with Gerry and Leah, the lovely Irish receptionist there, and they were saluting each other as if to say hello, and I sort of thought this was a bit strange, and then they looked at me and said, "Tim, you'll go," and I used the wrong hand to salute, terrible me, so I did it again, and yeah, away we went, but Gerry had the floor, so who was I to argue? And then we went in and conducted a pretty interesting interview about all manner of things, as we sort of discussed and have written about. It's a significant year for Magic Millions, 40 years since the brand was launched, I guess, at the Gold Coast. There was sales before that, but the Magic Million, as it was then, was 1986, and it's come a long way, lots of ups and downs and receiverships and administration. But Gerry and his wife, Katie, have had the business either in partnership or outrights for 28 years. And as Gerry says in the interview, as you'll hear in a second, that it is more than just a horse sale now. It is an event, the polo and all those different things around that. And in some ways, probably the Australasian yearlings or horse sales now are events rather than just trading horses. And Magic Millions played a significant role in that, I would say.
And here we have it, a feature interview with Gerry Harvey.
Catching up with Gerry Harvey, owner of Magic Millions. It is a special year, 2026. 40 years of the Magic Millions brand, I guess, Gerry, and it's come a long way, and it's quite a integral part of the bloodstock business now, internationally or around the world, Magic Millions.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's 40 years, and it was a business that started off with some very interesting characters, and none of them ever had any money to speak of, and it was always like just surviving, nearly going broke, all that sort of thing. And when I bought it with John Singleton and Rob Ferguson in 1997, it was making a little bit of money, was in receivership, and it was doing $23 million a year turnover. So we took that up to, $400 or $500 million turnover. So it's been a long journey. We've had it now for 28 years or something like that. So it didn't happen overnight, but we've done something that no other sales company in the world's done in terms of the way we do a horse sale, because we're doing it as an event. It's not just a horse sale. You don't come to a horse sale, you come to an event. And with the racing happening, with the polo, with the show jumping, with our personalities, we call them ambassadors. And the two best ones there are probably Zoe and not Zoe, Mike and Zara. Yeah. And they get us a lot of publicity in magazines across the world and on a lot of digital coverage. So it's now the idea of all of that. Kate's done all that. She's responsible for that. No one else. We all help. And so her idea is that we'll put this event on and bring more people into our industry. So horse sales don't normally go out into the community bringing people in and getting them interested in our industry. This does. So nowhere in the world is this done as professionally as we do it. In fact, it's hardly done at all. It's not even done unprofessionally. So the whole situation now is people come here from overseas and they look at it and say, wow, this is different. And they look at the whole promotion with the horses on the beach and the ambassadors and the polo and the show jumping and all the other things that we do out there. And the media coverage, it's on the front page of newspapers, it's the lead story on the television. And they think about that. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. The Kentucky horse sale goes on, the English horse sale goes on, the Irish. No one knows except people in the industry. It's a closed door. And so it's when they come here, they say, this is the way we should do it. But of course they got no one over there that knows how to do it. They look at it and they go back home and don't do anything. Why don't they do something? Well, the simple answer is they just haven't got the ability to do it. That seems strange. It's not that difficult. It's difficult, but it's not that difficult.
The Queensland government do recognise Magic Millions, so I guess it's tourism value and economic benefit, though, don't they? And I think I'm certain you've got some arrangements with Queensland Tourism and things.
Yeah, so in the beginning, we said to the Queensland government, Events Queensland, Tourism Queensland, if we all get into this together, then this can be the biggest event in Queensland. It'll be the event that Queensland will own, and the other states would say, why haven't we got this? Like Victoria would love to have this. New South Wales would love to have it. Now, the cost, the amount of money that the Queensland government, tourism and Events Queensland put in is tiny compared to what they would put in to create an event like this. To create an event like this, they'd be talking about putting in 50s and hundreds of millions, right? And so they realise that the amount they put in is significant, but it's tiny compared with, what they would put into an event anywhere else in Australia. So, and it's now become the biggest tourism event in Queensland. How valuable is that to Queensland? And it goes all across the world.
In the 30 years that you've sort of, since 1997 owned Magic Millions, the bloodstock market is growing exponentially, particularly sort of that COVID boom. And of course, it's come off that a little bit. But how do you see the Australasian bloodstock market at the moment?
Well, it's very, very strong. And it's interesting because that top end of the market, people paying over $1 million for a horse, and I don't know how many we'll have here. I think we had 13 last year or something like that. It'll probably be the same this year. But people paying $1 million plus for a horse. That's a big gamble. But these are people that are out there trying to get the best horse. And it's like, you've got bragging rights. I've got the 3-year-old colt or the 2-year-old filly or something that's the Group 1 winner, or it's the best of its generation, all this sort of thing. So it's a dream come true for people if they can achieve this. And we all strive to do it. And the one we all really want is that $50 million stallion, the horse that changes all our lives. And so that's a pot of gold. And if you're in this business, you could be a battler out there and never had a good winner. You might snare this horse. It's a bit like winning Powerball or something, You're in the game, you might win.
Do you think the industry or racing is attracting the 30-year-old Gerry Harvey's entrepreneurs that have done well in business and, I'm going to spend some money in owning horses? Are they attracting those new?
Well, we are. When I was a young bloke and you went to the races, everyone was over 40, 50, 60. Today you go to the races and everyone's under 40, 50, 60s. We are attracting that younger generation. And a lot of that's to do with we get a lot of young women at the races and the boys follow sort of thing. And in the old days, the girls would be at balls and all that. So there's no balls anymore. They don't get dressed up to go to a ball. They get dressed up to go to the races. So if you want to go to a fashion parade in Australia, go to the races. And if you're at the races tomorrow here on the Gold Coast, you're going to see a fantastic fashion parade, and with so many young people. And so then you've got people that are instantly wealthy today that didn't happen 30, 50, 100 years ago. They're in tech or something happened, and they were nobody, and now suddenly they're worth $100 million or $1 billion or something like that. So you get some of that, like Nigel Austin, for instance, has got Cotton On, and he's into horses. So we're trying to find more Nigel Austins. Then you get the guy from China, Zhang, and he's got a coal mine, and he makes a lot of money. And the thing that he wants to do more than anything else in the world, have the best horses in the world. Now, these guys are not old, but trying to get that 30 to 40-year-old guy that's just made a lot of money is something that, they're into boats, they're into aeroplanes, they're into football, they might be into cricket, they might be into tennis, they might be into racing. There's a lot of competition out there, basketball. But if something snaps in their little brain and they get into this business, that's what we want.
Yep. I mean, it's an interesting time, this 100 years of New Zealand yearling sales next week. And, it's also NZB is privately owned. Inglis family, obviously, with their auction houses. It's not an easy business, though. Do you see the longer term future for those businesses, given it, at any one time, you've probably got $150 million going out before it comes back? That, where do you see the future of auction houses in?
Well, the problem is that you don't make much money. New Zealand Bloodstock don't make much money. We don't make much money, and Inglis don't make much money. So it's not a business that you look at and say, this is a great business, I'm going to make a fortune. This is a business that you go into for the passion. You've got to be passionate about horses. You've got to be prepared to not make a lot of money. You've got to have the capacity to be able to, have an extra 150 million out there at the end of this sale, for instance, that, we've got to pay all the people within 30 days. We don't get paid within 30 days. So that will be 150 million in the red at the end of this week. So, but that'll start coming back in. But you've got to have that money. And if you haven't got that money, well, you can't give the credit. And then you haven't got a horse sale. So so for what you make out of it as a business, it's not what you call a business you want to get into to make money. But it still survives, it makes a bit of money and all that sort of thing, but it's a more interesting business. I mean, I sell fridges, right? And I love it. It's Harvey Norman. We're in 8 countries. We employ 20,000 people. We've got over 300 shops. It's interesting, but in a way, this is like more interesting. It's like, it's an animal. It's a horse race. It's very competitive, and it's bloody hard to make money out of it.
Yeah. All these auction houses are, sitting on valuable land, obviously, here at the Gold Coast, New Zealand. The Karaka there's probably worth $1 billion possibly, and with Magic Millions, Inglis near Melbourne and Opens Junction, and Adelaide's an interesting space at the moment. They're building all around the sales ground there at Morfordville. Where do you see the future of a yearling sale in Adelaide?
Well, that Adelaide property, I've been offered $30 million for the property. I paid $2 million for it.
Yeah.
And I'm not selling it. But that doesn't mean one day I won't. But then I'd have to find another site and build stables and a complex. I did that in Perth.
Yeah.
And if you'd ever been to Perth in the old days, you'd say, what a shocking bloody situation it was. The stables were terrible. The whole thing was a shocker. And now we've got a really modern, wonderful setup. I mean, I even had one of the vendors come and he was crying when he was talking to you. You've done this for Western Australia. We want you to know how happy we are that, and I did that on the basis that I'd make no money, but I'd break square.
Yeah.
I'm actually making some money.
Yeah.
So that's the good part about it. And as you said, I've got a block of land that will probably be housing 10, 20, 30 years from now. So, and it's the same with this block of land here.
Yeah.
So that's a little gold mine in the future, if you like. I'm 86, so I probably won't be a part of that coal mine, right?
Yep.
But someone will.
Yep.
And this is very valuable land. Inglis sold their land in the eastern suburbs. It's now worth probably 3 times what they sold it for. They should have waited till now. But, they've got a successful operation out there near Liverpool, and it goes okay, it's fine. But for the investment they've got in it and what they make out of it, it's not a good business.
Yeah. So is that scary? I'm not saying you shouldn't be land banking and possibly selling these down the track, but Magic Millions at the Gold Coast and Adelaide and Perth, and that will be here for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, there's no plan whatsoever to do anything different. So, from Kate's point of view, she loves this business. You can see what she's done up here. What she's done has been extraordinary. I don't believe anyone else in the country could have done what she did. And it's been very successful. And you go out there in that crowd at the moment, you look at it and you think, all those people have got a dream. And so you're giving someone something to dream about. And if the dream comes to reality, you've changed their lives.
Yep. And on Magic Millions Digital, which you've relaunched in the last few months, no secret that Inglis did and doing a very good job of that space.
They've owned that market.
Yeah, that's right. But you're determined to try and get some market share.
No, well, what will probably happen is that they owned 100%, and down the track we'll have 50% and they'll have 50%. It's a bit like the sales now, that'll tend to happen because from the industry's point of view, they need two strong competitors out there. And so if you're a horse breeder or a buyer or a seller, you want that competition. And if there were just one body, that wouldn't be there. And so it's very important that we have that competition from the industry point of view. And there's really only Magic Millions in Inglis. There's no one else. And you go to New Zealand, you've only got one, and it's highly unlikely anyone else is ever going to come into this business to challenge those three players. So the three players are dominant, and with very little chance that anyone else will enter that industry to challenge on the basis of why would they? They're only going to do it, I don't know, I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. I'm not going to do it to make any money.
Yep.
So, the status quo will stay as it is, the way I see it.
Yep. This time last year, Gerry, I spoke to you and asked about the 2-year-olds sales space, and you were hoping to, dare I say, with competition, join forces with Inglis. That certainly didn't happen last year.
That's a shame. That's a shame because they make no money out of it. We make no money out of it. New Zealand do a far better job than either of us. And so we're fighting each other and not fighting New Zealand. That makes no sense. So somehow or other, we probably should figure out how we can get together and do it, because even if we don't make any money, we'll be doing a service to the industry. The industry as a whole will be better off if we work together. The way we're doing it is not satisfactory for anyone.
Yep. I guess it is an important segment of the market, traders that are sourcing yearlings here and all the yearling sales for the rest of the year for those 2-year-old sales. So it's important, clipping, you get commission buying those yearlings and adding competition to the buying bench, particularly at that lower to middle end where those sort of trade horses are found generally.
Yeah, well, it's another outlet. And so in New Zealand, Australians go over there and buy at the ready-to-run sale, Australian trainers. They don't come here and buy at Magic Millions in Inglis. Why? So they've got all the overseas buyers there, plus Australian buyers, plus New Zealand buyers. Here, we rely largely on Asian buyers. And so if we did it properly here, we'd get a lot of Australian trainers coming and buying there too. We'd also get a lot more contribution from all the studs. I've spoken to the studs. I said, if we did this properly in Australia, would you put horse? Yeah, we sure would. We don't do it because I don't think either of you do a very good job in Australia.
Yeah. No, really appreciate you speaking to me, Gerry. As always, forthright and interesting, and good luck for the rest of the sales season.
Okay, I hope we sell it. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a pretty good sale. We're nearly there.
Yeah.
So, and even on Sunday, we'll have some good horses there too.
Tim, it was very informative listen. Not even Gerry Harvey thinks he's immortal, and his views on the future of the bloodstock industry are fascinating about sort of, where things will head going forward. He's obviously seen a lot of change in his time, and he knows that, no businesses stand still, and no business that wants to grow should stand still.
As he mentioned, I put a question to him about attracting, where are the young Gerry Harveys these days that have, in business and done well and wanting to spend some of their discretionary income on horses. He says it's coming, and it is there, and people are excited about racing. And there was, as we said, there was $200 million turned over last week. It's down on previous years, but still, that's a lot of money. It is a select sale, so it's the top end of the top, near the top of the market. It's probably like comparing eastern suburbs in Sydney, real estate. It is select, and a select buying bench as well, I'd guess.
Yeah, it's fascinating to the state the industry's in, and I said I think there is it's becoming more and more select. And you see in 5 or 10 years' time there'll be fewer horses at sale, but probably a similar sort of returns for the for the vendors, because the way the average prices are going up, but the amount of horses being sold is reducing. So it's an interesting time. Tim, just before we go, I wanted to touch on a few other stories quickly which have come out of this week. We're obviously in this sort of bridging week between Magic Millions and Karaka, and we'll talk about Karaka in a minute. But the story that came out yesterday about Grant and Alana Williams, the Group 1 training combination in WA, the premiers from WA, the dominant training partnership for the last 2 or 3 years, getting a positive test. Now, that's probably not unusual for a big stable, but for them to be stood down immediately, it sounds like it's a significant story that's evolving over there.
The release came through, our time, probably 5:30 or something like that. And, the lead was probably buried in that release at the last line, that they'd been stood down pending the outcome of the inquiry, which is next Tuesday. And then the horse Starry Heights returned a positive to, Ritalin, effectively, ADHD drug. And that was from the Kalgoorlie Cup. Unfortunately, the horse broke down in that race and had to be euthanized. Now, Grant and Alana put out a statement and said they will fully cooperate. They're not sure how the drug or the substance came, in the horse's system, and I'm sure the inquiry will hopefully get to the bottom of that. I did make a few inquiries to a few learned racing people, and one person suggested, and then not with this case specifically, but they have seen in the past where, postmortems on euthanized horses can throw up false positives because, there's of the drugs that are used to, humanely put the horses down. It'll be whether that's an argument or whether that's generally what's happened in this case, time will tell. But there is those sort of scenarios out there that, with precedents of that, that I'm sure will be argued next week and going forward.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens sort of going forward as well, whether they'll be stood down, or whether they'll decide to sort of, I guess, contest this and get the initial stand-down order sort of set aside so they continue business, because most of the time we've seen exceptions in Australia where trainers have been stood down immediately, including obviously the most prominent being the Darren Weir case a few years ago where, pretty much it was, shut the doors as soon as it happens. But it's not often we see this level of sort of immediacy, Tim. So we'll see how that evolves during the next week or so. I wanted to sort of quickly mention a couple of wagering stories. But one of the things I want to point out is about regulation in the wagering space at the moment. And it like the more stories I write about this, the more I find it is a bit of a complete mess, pretty much. Depends what state you are, depends what you're eligible you do. It depends. Like there's a story today which we put up about a punter from a couple of years ago who was denied a payout because they had found, or Picklebet had said that he'd had a duplicate account, which is established and whatever else. And what I think it looks what had happened is that there was part of a punters club account, and that same device had been used to operate the punters club account. So Picklebet, within terms and conditions, had the right to shut down. Now, I guess the specific circumstances aside, it's a complex industry, and it seems like, the ability for, I guess, punters to get a clear view on this stuff and get consumer protections is not always clear. So I find it an interesting one, Tim. I'm not too sure what your perspective on these types of activities and whether punters are best served by the system we've got.
Well, I just putting aside Picklebet and my own dealings with them as well, put them aside, that the way the market's gone now, bet with mates, and there's Dabble have built the whole business on copying bets and things like that. So the fact, in the story suggests, it was the bets were from tips. Well, that at the moment that just completely drives the market, as I said, with Dabbles and things like that, and bet with mates, and Tab have implemented on their app where you can copy the tipsters, the Dave Stanleys and Brad Davisons, and directly, just press a button and have your money on. So it's an interesting time with that argument. Obviously, I'm not doubting the Commission's findings, but that argument was successful from Picklebet's point of view.
Yeah, I guess that's probably also worth pointing out that the case was from late 2022 and was actually under the previous legislation in Northern Territory. Obviously, things have been updated since then, but I would think that it probably still would hold true as well. And the terms and conditions of the of the bookmakers are pretty ironclad, and the NTRWC have been pretty keen to make sure that that's put in. just on the Bren and bloodstock landscape quickly again, Tim, we'll be providing preview podcast live from Karaka on Friday. Both of us will be over there in New Zealand. Looking forward to the 100th sale over there. It should be a big week. And we're also providing wraps of the day on both Sunday night and Monday night from the big sale over there. What's expected to be a huge few days. Yeah, really interesting times in the bloodstock space. We obviously saw Magic Millions was a very positive result for the industry, and interested to see how that flows over to New Zealand. Also, just wanted to say, keep an eye out for Jess Ulwer's written in the Stars this week. I think it'll be published on Friday morning on Michael Floyd, a legend in the New Zealand bloodstock ranks, and someone she has tagged in the article as the father of Karaka, which, given 100 years, those people who played a major role deserve to be in the spotlight, Tim. So, yeah, obviously so many major players in that New Zealand space, and they'll get their time in the spotlight this week, no doubt, as they mark, what is quite an extraordinary milestone, 100 years of selling horses.
I've watched NZB, they're a bit like Magic Millions, they've put out books and different catalogues and sort of recognising their history, and I've been watching a bit of some nice interviews with current and former staff sort of reflecting on the history of NZB on their social media platforms and things like that, which has been quite interesting because there is a lot of loyal staff that are still there. And then there's Andrew, the one I watched with Andrew Seabrook, the people that have sort of worked at the auction house and then gone on to do other things. Jamie Richards, Bevan Smith, Bruce Slade was on there. There's heaps of them. It is, and same for Magic Millions in Inglis. It is a great educational places, those auction houses, and a lot of people go on to do other great things within the industry.
So we'll aim to get back to our usual Thursday format of Straight Talk in the next couple of weeks. It's been a busy time sort of between Magic Millions into Karaka, from next week. But as I said, we'll have those podcasts out of New Zealand on Friday, Sunday and Monday. Thanks again to our sponsors, Inglis and Darley, for all your support. Happy to have them aboard again for 2026. And looking forward to what will be a big year. We'll talk to you again shortly.